Hey, my name is Kara. I'm an ultrasound tech, and let's talk today about the three types of placental cord insertions. And before we get into the video, I did want to mention that I have a link in my bio for my new group that is for current as well as expecting moms. I do post information over there, as well as I think we are a pretty great community that provides support as well as information in general. So check that out if you want. I would love to see you over there. Anyways, back to placental cord insertions. So this is something that we are going to evaluate on the second trimester anatomy scan on baby. And what we are doing is seeing where the umbilical cord actually inserts into mom's placenta. That umbilical cord is what is attaching mom to baby, and where that inserts is what we are going to be discussing today. So the three main types are going to be a normal or a central cord insertion. The second type is going to be a marginal cord insertion, and then the third type is going to be called a vellamentous cord insertion. In the pictures up here, it only shows two types, so you can see these are actually both vellamentous cord insertions, those last two, with this being a normal cord insertion. But I thought this diagram was still helpful when I talk about what the cord insertions would potentially look like before we jump into the ultrasound pictures. So that red area up here, as well as in these other two pictures, are going to be the placenta. So you can see it kind of looks like an elongated structure up there. And the umbilical cord is what is in blue. You can see here on a normal central cord insertion, and as the name implies, that is going to be inserting into mom's placenta centrally, so in the middle of mom's placenta. And this is going to happen in about 90% of cases. So in the majority of cases, that is going to be classified as just a normal cord insertion. This is going to be different though than what a marginal cord insertion is, which again, it's not depicted up here, but with a marginal placenta cord insert, this is where the cord is going into the placenta, but it is less than 2 centimeters away from the edge of the placenta. So again, it is not shown up here, but I am going to bring up an ultrasound picture after this so that it can be better illustrated. And then the third type is going to be a vellamentous cord insertion. You can see this is a normal vellamentous cord insertion, and that one is with vasa previa. So this one here, you can see that with a vellamentous cord insertion, it's not actually inserting into the placenta, which again is the red thing. It's actually inserting right beside the placenta, or it can also insert, as you see in that picture over there, very far away from the placenta. This isn't ideal, and this happens only in about, I think, 1% of pregnancies, but it's not ideal because obviously it's not inserting into mom's placenta directly where it should be getting all of its nutrients and whatnot. Instead, it is inserting beside it, essentially into baby's membranes. And in this case over here, this is vellamentous cord insertion, which again, the blue part over there, which is the cord, is inserting over here, which is not by where the placenta is, which is the red thing. And instead, it is inserted over here. And there's also these vessels here. So you can see that the vessels are actually connecting this cord insertion over here over to mom's placenta, because obviously baby needs to get the nutrients from the placenta somehow, and it will be through these extra vessels over here. But in this case, you can see that the vessels are actually draped over the cervix, which is right here. And that is what we call vasa previa. This is dangerous because it can increase the risk of hemorrhage, as in it probably will. So in the case of where vasa previa is seen and these vessels are actually draped over the cervix, where baby should be coming out at the time of birth, doctors are usually going to lean towards a C-section to get baby out instead of risking mom's life as well as baby's life by potentially trying to go through these vessels here and causing mom to hemorrhage. And these are ultrasound pictures showing the three types of cord insertions. So this is a normal one that is going to be a marginal cord insertion, and then the one over there on the bottom right is going to be the vellamentous cord insertion. So in this picture here of the normal cord insertion, we can see that this is baby, and then the lit up vessels over there. So we are putting color Doppler on the cord here just to show the vessels have blood flow in them. But you can see that this here, this gray kind of like longer structure up here, is the placenta. And this cord right here is going into the placenta right here. That is the connection point there. And on either side, we can see there is quite a bit of space, which means that the cord insertion is in the central or a normal configuration on this picture here. So again, it's inserting right into here in the placenta, and it looks normal. That is different than this picture here, which is depicting a marginal cord insertion. And again, a marginal cord insertion is where the cord, which again is highlighted by the color Doppler, so we are putting color on the umbilical cord here. And you can see that the edge of the placenta is right over here. So if we trace from the placental edge over here to where the cord inserts, so if we trace over here, it is going to be less than 2 centimeters, which means that we are going to classify this as a marginal cord insertion. And it is not inserting centrally, which would be like way down there. Probably the central part of the placenta is way down there. And instead, it is over by where the placenta edge is, where the placenta ends essentially. And you can see over here, it is, again, less than 2 centimeters away. This happens in about 7% of pregnancies, and there is a higher incidence in twin pregnancies, as well as the vellamentous cord insertion, which you can see on the right-hand side over there. There is also a higher incidence as well in twin pregnancies. And with a marginal cord insertion, this can be associated with IUGR in the third trimester, so a growth restriction on baby in the third trimester because it's not getting as much nutrients as it should be because of the cord inserting into the edge of the placenta rather than the center of it. There is also going to be an increased incidence of having preterm labor, which means that your body is going to go into labor earlier than what is expected, as well as a higher incidence of placental abruption, which means that the placenta actually tears away completely from the uterus, and therefore there is that risk of hemorrhage and mom and baby being in danger. But with all of that being said, most of the time when somebody has a marginal cord insertion, it ends up being fine with no complications. And if anything, you'll just have a couple extra scans in the third trimester just to monitor baby and make sure that the growth is doing okay, as well as make sure that there are no other complications because of the marginal cord insertion. And finally, this is the vellamentous cord insertion that we were talking about earlier on in the video as well. So here you can see the placenta is this structure all up here. And where this cord is inserting, it is not in the placenta, which is up here. It is actually inserting beside the placenta. So again, that is inserting into baby's membranes instead of the placenta here. And because it's inserting over here, that means that there will be exposed vessels between the cord insertion over there and the placenta up here. So the vessels will be between like here and here to connect baby over to mom's blood supply and the placenta in order for obviously baby to get nutrients. So those vessels are definitely going to be exposed. And this happens only in about 1% of pregnancies, but like with the marginal cord insertion, there is a concern for baby's growth in the third trimester. So there is that concern of IUGR. And therefore, you will also get more scans than in the third trimester to check on baby's growth, as well as make sure that vasa previa is not present. So, like talked about in earlier on in the video, this is when the vessels are actually draped over the internal os of the cervix, and therefore it would be very dangerous to deliver baby vaginally because of the increased risk of hemorrhage. So, C-section is usually the way to go if we are seeing the vessels draped over top of the cervix because of the vellamentous cord insertion.